Welcome to your post-daily news update for Tuesday, December the 7th. I am John Pollock. He is waiting, and we are here to chat all the latest news on a Tuesday.
Yes, news on a Tuesday. I love it. Great. Nice. Post-Raw, refreshed, good to go.
Tuesdays, what a great day. A great day for ratings, Mr. Ting. And that is where we go first. Starting off with Friday Night SmackDown, the return of Brock Lesnar in San Antonio, Texas, averaging out 2,030,000 viewers, down 5.5% from the prior week. And in the 18 to 49 demo, falling to a 0.51. They were down 10% in the key demo. And this was a night where SmackDown got hurt rather sizably. Their numbers were their lowest since July 9th. And what's significant about July 9th, that is the last time SmackDown was in the Thunderdome. So Brock Lesnar's return did not spike numbers, and in fact, leading to their lowest point since of the return of live fans. This was going against both the NBA on ESPN and a Pac-12 football game that was airing on ABC and did a really big number. They were the most watched program on television for Friday night, and SmackDown was actually behind the Pac-12 coverage as well as an episode of SWAT on CBS. Do you watch SWAT?
I have not watched SWAT. I don't even know what SWAT is. So, no.
Well, it was it beat out SmackDown. That's what it did. So yeah, SmackDown definitely hurt on Friday night, and in the other demos in 18 to 34, they were down 26%. So this certainly seemed to be both SmackDown and Rampage being hurt among young males. But I would say, wait, yes, the football certainly. It was interesting because a week ago, we talked about Rampage being hurt by the college football and college basketball, but SmackDown seemed to be not affected at all. This week, that was not the case. You could attribute some of this to it, but I thought with the return of Brock Lesnar, and even more so for those that may have just been casually tuning in, they really hit it hard that you're going to get a very rare Universal title match on this show. They didn't quite deliver it in the way you would expect a big championship match, but it was advertised nonetheless that you were anticipating that, as well as a Brock Lesnar appearance that was going to come in that main event. So I would say it was disappointing given that this was hardly a rank and file SmackDown, but a big one with Brock's return.
Well, what do you see the reason being? Is it strictly the competition? Does the holiday season have anything to do with it?
I don't look at the holidays as any kind of deterrent. I mean, we're removed from Thanksgiving at this point. I do certainly think like this college football game. Not only was it on Friday night against them, it was also on ABC. So you're talking about a larger scope, and that seemed to really impact the number. So I think that's a contributing factor. But at the same time, it was still a larger than usual SmackDown that was not able to offset its competition. So that was a story on SmackDown. They also did just over 155,000 viewers in Canada on Sportsnet 360. So they were down in total viewers in Canada, but they were actually other way around. They were up in total viewers in Canada, but down in the 25 to 54 demo. Rampage, on the other hand, did 499,000 viewers, up 16% from the week prior, and 241,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demo, courtesy of Brandon Thurston and Showbuzz Daily. The 18 to 49 demo, it was up like 1% from the week before, so almost no movement there. But they were up in viewers. That said, this was still the third lowest 18 to 49 number in the show's history, and I believe their second lowest overall audience figure. So this was, it was up from the week before, but we're coming off a pretty bad Rampage number the week prior. So up until last week, they had never fallen below 500,000. And this week it was 499. It's relative, but nonetheless, this was not a case where putting a championship match on spiked this number. But I guess the female viewership certainly was up, but this was again hurt by like males 18 to 49 down 15%. If you're looking at males 12 to 34, they were down 36%. And I think you could look at the male audience on both shows being impacted on Friday night. And I would look at the football and NBA as a reason for that.
If you're Tony Khan, do you see this as a problem, or do you think this is still perhaps doing what it should be, or is it doing better than maybe what initial expectations were for a show like this?
I think an interesting question is, if you are TNT, certainly you can look at Rampage, and year to year, if you're looking at what was in this time slot a year ago, Rampage looks like it's a big success. It's way up from what would be in that time slot uh, pre-Rampage. That said, are you looking at year to year? What if you're looking at month to month, or just from August to now? That it's very easy to say, hey, we're doing way better than we were a year ago. But you can also say, hey, we know what the ceiling is for this show. We know what Rampage is capable of hitting, and we are no longer hitting that threshold. Now, as Brandon Thurston had his whole breakdown of the DVR data, this is the most DVR'd show among major pro wrestling programs. So you are still getting eyes on this show in a meaningful way. And that comes down to how much advertisers value that DVR viewership, how much TNT can do with those numbers when they're out selling this program. And I think that's what it comes down to. If you have a small window, you might be looking at Rampage that, hey, we know what this show could hit in September, and it's November. We're not looking year to year. We're looking just a few months ago of where this was. And if you're subscribing to the latter, then maybe you are looking at Rampage, and this show is not meeting the numbers that our new projections of the show were once it was established after 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, interesting to see, as always, anytime maybe a trend comes out that might not be as favorable to the public eye, how AEW responds. How can they respond? I mean, they have a number of big shows to peak for already. Is Rampage just going to have to be something that they have to, worry about at a later time?
That's it. I think that it's doing very respectable numbers for a Friday night at 10. And I do think this is a show that would do dramatically better in a more advantageous time slot. Even on a Friday. Like, do you think Rampage would do better or worse airing, say, 8 to 9 or 9 to 10, where you are going against SmackDown, which would be a risk? It's not a. Do you think that there would be any advantage to being earlier in the night, or do you think Friday is just going to be a handicap in and of itself for the AEW audience?
Well, I mean, in that scenario, it'd be really interesting to see how WWE would react. And because I certainly think that they would beef up their show in certain ways and stack all their main events towards the competing hour if that was the case. And I do think Rampage will be hurt because Rampage 2 would have to really beef up its roster if they want to go head to head and be competitive. So I think this is a better move. But again, like, what are the aims of this? For TNT, is it strictly wanting to have another property at 10 o'clock on a Friday that you want to have be competitive, or like eventually
and a show you can sell? And I would say, like, you're doing this audience on Friday night that it's still doing healthy numbers that, like, I don't look at this as like a cause for significant concern. It's only if you're looking at what has been the trend line for Rampage, and it is certainly gone down, especially over these past few weeks, where is this just where it kind of settles at, and knowing that it can attract more people, and it seems that more are DVRing this show or just not tuning in. And I don't know if you'd want to take resources from Dynamite to put it on Friday nights, where it's not a guarantee that you take this and it's going to artificially lift up Rampage. It may be Friday's a no-go for a large portion of their audience, that they're going to catch up on this. They're not watching it live. So why are we going to water down Dynamite, which is the show that is your A show, as much as AEW wants to position these two as equals? Like, that is the central show for the AEW consumer.
Jamie in the chat asks, would 7 to 8 be a good slot in the US on a Friday?
I don't think so. I think that 7 o'clock start, I think that's really tough, even if you're talking about a staggered feed. I would say you're going against a lot of, like, syndicated programming. I think you don't want to go before 8 o'clock.
I think they should take it to Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Bring the fight back to NXT.
You could do that. And it's probably going to put more of a spotlight on both shows, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting topic of discussion as these ratings come in, but things can change in a week. A lot can change.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at two numbers that are on
Mhm.
like the lowest side of Rampage, and we will see. Like, I'm kind of curious. Like, for Winter is Coming on the Wednesday, that same night, do they try and kind of stock up the Friday show as well, coming out of Winter is Coming?
Yeah, good question.
Okay, let's continue on. And GCW has announced the Collective for WrestleMania weekend, along with the GCW World Fair. So this is from Andrew Thompson on the site. Beginning March 31st, going through April 2nd, Game Changer Wrestling is hosting the Collective Weekend in Dallas, Texas. The promotion announced that there's going to be live wrestling shows, food trucks, and merchandise available to purchase. As part of the Collective, the GCW World Fair is debuting, which includes 17,000 square feet of vendors, exhibits, games, podcasts, and stage shows. So this very much looks to be the evolution of what we have seen with like WrestleCon, with what the WWN family has run in years past over WrestleMania, and really it's just building upon the pre-existing collectives that GCW has run. That these are not just going to be strictly wrestling events, but a lot of other things. I mean, once you're getting into food trucks, I think we're really expanding the reach at this point. Come and get fed at just live here. Maybe they'll offer tents. You can sleep overnight at the collective, but this will be a big focus of WrestleMania weekend for a lot of fans. I think this will be, look at this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's always good to see a company like GCW and the Collective expand and grow their operations. And the branding of this feels very much like it's supposed to be a world fair, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of fun with it. It's a time to hang out with a lot of other like-minded wrestling fans that are probably pretty deep into this hobby. If you're listening to this, or if you're a fan of the GCW products, and of course, a lot of other things to do. So I'm very curious to see what sort of other stage shows or games, like what games are we talking about here? Especially when it's like Nick Gage and like
Maybe they can do the weight
Alex
guess.
Colon.
At the exhibition where they do like the weight guessing game,
Okay.
you could introduce the Nick Gage.
I love it. He guesses your weight. Will he
Yes.
guess your weight?
Can you imagine?
This could be a lot of fun. I mean, we're not going, of course, but like I'd be very curious to hear what people's what events they
Hey,
they will
we're
have.
looking for correspondence. Okay, reach out.
Yeah.
You want to be a correspondent for Post Wrestling that weekend? We're looking for you. This looks like a lot of fun. So anyway, that's WrestleMania weekend. It seems like this is going to this past year was definitely a toned down WrestleMania weekend where you had some shows after like nothing the year before. The Dallas feels like it will be the return to companies running full out, and it'll also be interesting way to see companies that maybe had always run. If they're going to invest and go, like, this is the most lucrative weekend of the year for any independent company. How much representation there is going to be of companies that maybe have had a dramatically decreased schedule during the pandemic, or not one at all.
Have you heard about WrestleCon for this coming year?
Oh, WrestleCon's running. Yeah, they're starting to roll out names. They've got Bray Wyatt is their first big announcement to appear.
I mean, this sounds like it's a direct competitor that GCW and the Collective are starting up, for a similar type of market.
It is. It's like it's a multi-day fan fest that each are running. So yeah, they're very much going to be in competition with one another. MLW put out an announcement on Tuesday. So MLW Fusion Alpha. This was always a limited series that was going to have an end date. So that final episode of Alpha will be on Wednesday, December the 15th, as they wrap up that 13-part series. And then replacing it is going to be the official launch of MLW Azteca, that they are calling a standalone miniseries that will premiere on Thursday, January the 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, featuring the greatest luchadors of Mexico clashing with MLW's best of the best. MLW matchmaker Cesar Duran presides over the action, from sold-out arenas in Mexico to underground fight clubs. And of course, MLW and the Crash just ran a show on Friday night that looked packed from the photos that emerged. So Azteca will air. It will stream first on their YouTube channel and Fight TV Thursday, January 6th at 8 p.m. And then it will have a television window on beIN Sports on Saturday, January 8th at 10 p.m. So that means January 8th is like the craziest day. And that is the day that we've got the New Japan Noah card. We've got Impact's pay-per-view. We have Battle for the Belts. And for those that don't watch this episode on YouTube, that will be on television as well. So January 8th, a crazy day. But yeah, this looks to be like, this is like MLW's sort of a brand extension with Azteca.
Yeah, good to see MLW, expanding and doing different things that I think are fulfilling a niche in the, at least, American market that might not be satiated right now. There's some incredible talent. I think, there was a good level of interest in the AAA show that took place this past weekend, but I do think there is like an American and Canadian audience that probably wants to see it be a bit more accessible, and maybe with production values that are a bit more aligned to, I think, our, the standards of American television. And I think that's what MLW will likely provide. Lucha Underground is very much a cult favorite that I think is still discussed to this day, and this looks to be a spiritual successor. So we look to see like how much production wise MLW can keep up with, because that level of production was incredibly high.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot. Like, you go back to Lucha Underground, like it got to a place where I think it drove off a lot of people. But I would say the first two seasons, it was a really engaging product. That it was certainly different. It wasn't to everyone's liking, but overall, like, it was a tremendous talent pool. It was a way of producing wrestling television that felt very unique and novel, with state of the art production. That was a big drawing card for Lucha Underground. I think their handicap way was just not being on a big network. Like, El Rey only had so much of a reach, which was the primary home after season one. So obviously wanting to capitalize on some of that, the game is always just, as you are trying to introduce more to a public that has their hands full with pro wrestling, that is going to be the eternal struggle for pro wrestling companies that are not WWE, that are not AEW, of trying to find their place in the industry and find enough of an audience to support these ideas.
It's true. But, for me, like, anytime something new gets announced, I just always ask, like, is it different enough that I think it'll garner an audience that is separate from AEW or WWE's or even Impacts? Like, there's definitely room for different and unique, and this feels like it's going to be that.
Wei, your plans for December 18th may have changed, or maybe they're still going to be the same, because Jake Paul is not fighting Tommy Fury in Tampa. Tommy Fury, who is the half-brother of heavyweight Tyson Fury, has withdrawn from the fight, citing a bacterial chest infection and a broken rib that Jake Paul is skeptical of. And he found out about this on Friday. Jake Paul told Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. And in to replace Tommy Fury on short notice is Tyron Woodley. So the tattoo bet is going to be acknowledged by Jake Paul. These two will have their rematch on December the 18th in Tampa, which, according to WrestleTix, there's over 17,000 tickets out for this event. So this sold tickets for this event. I don't think, like, Tommy Fury did not have a huge name for North American fans, but Jake Paul does. And I don't know if the opponent change is going to drastically change people's interest, but I also don't see this being a big success. It didn't sound like the first fight was that enormous to begin with. The rematch, I don't know how many people are clamoring, but this was a situation where they wanted to keep this date, and this was an opponent that they could easily insert on 2 weeks' notice.
I mean, for me, what's this dude's name? Tommy Fury meant absolutely nothing. I can't imagine
he was gonna have to change his name for a year away.
Okay, well, Tyron Woodley might have to assume that bet. I don't think the tattoo is satisfying enough for Jake Paul anymore. So what would he give up, Tyron or Woodley?
This fight does need a last minute bet to really sell buys the week of.
And I think we've seen, if you're willing to sell a tattoo on your body, I mean, it's sad to see, honestly, but like I do wonder where Tyron Woodley what he'd be willing to offer. I personally actually have more interest. And again, this is really sad to say, like, that I have any sort of interest in this, but the fact that this is continuing the narrative from the last match, as ridiculous as all of this is, it's somehow Tyron Woodley managing to finally actually get that rematch that he oh man, he sold a tattoo on his body for. I'm at a little bit more invested than I was with the prior opponent.
And finally, NXT 2.0 tonight. I think there's a lot of interest in tonight's show, more than a typical week for the brand. They're coming off of War Games, and the show is built, I would say, around two things. We have Johnny Gargano, who is going to talk about everything.
What does that entail?
Oh,
everything.
He's going to talk about AIW
Crypto?
in Cleveland, crypto, every Marvel film that he has watched. He's going to explain every inch of his gear from Sunday. Everything is going to be discussed. Maybe that should be the whole 2 hours.
He's going to host a podcast, basically.
That could be the announcement. So yeah, there's a focus on that. The steel cage match between Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner, and they've announced Zion Quinn versus Santos Escobar tonight.
Yeah, I personally have a bit more interest in this NXT than I do typically for a number of those things. You know, the fact that it could be Kyle and Johnny Gargano's, like it'll be a significant show for them. It sounds like either way, and also on commentary.
That's right. Beth Phoenix is finished on Sunday, so that will we should immediately see the answer. Like, are they going to put a third person in the booth? Are they going to go with a 2-man team for the time being? That too will be interesting to see if they want to put someone on commentary as well.
And of course, our friends at Up Next will be doing a post show at twitch.tv/upnextpodcast and also on their own podcast feed right after that. So check out that show tonight and also tomorrow morning.
That's right. We will also be dropping a Ask Away mailbag show tonight for members at postwrestlingcafe.com.
Yeah, before we get out of here, a couple super chats. And of course, we answer your super chat questions at the end of these shows if we get them. And we want to thank Jamie Stalker for sending £1 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Jamie, for the support. He asked, do we think ratings will continue to be low as we approach the holiday season?
Depends on the show. Certainly, I think you throw out the Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve editions, which we should go over. Over the weekend, Dave Meltzer was the first to report that SmackDown, they are scheduled to do a live episode on December 17th in Chicago, and then tape another episode to air Christmas Eve. And then December 31st will be a best of show that is scheduled to air on FS1. So it looks like that is their holiday programming. AEW, they are advertising Dynamite and Rampage tapings for both those Wednesdays. So it looks like they will have fresh first run shows of Rampage on both Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. That I think those are going to be nights you should not put any stock into those numbers. That said, a few years ago when Fox ran the best UFC fights of the year, they put it on Fox on Christmas Eve. It did a phenomenal number. It's like you have all these families together. What's on TV? It's like it's either Christmas shows or you put on some fights that, who knows, like maybe there will be a boost for a SmackDown/Rampage that night.
I'm curious to see what sort of like best of programming that AEW would actually be able to put together, what their shows would be like, whether they'll put any sort of spin on it. I mean, they have a lot of content that they can choose from.
AEW's not doing the best of. It's WWE that's doing the best of.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just meant like in the conversation itself, you know.
Right.
If they were to ever do any sort of like, and why, like for what about these like the Friday Rampage? They are taping, of course.
Yeah.
You're right. But in some ways, would it be more beneficial to run like, hey, like we're going to air a pay-per-view match on this Friday night rather than some sort of match like, you know, that people might not care as much about?
Yeah, I would say like New Year's Eve to me is like, I don't know how much, like, obviously if you're going to run new shows, you want to put your best foot forward. I just don't know, like, dude, of all years, if ever there was a New Year's Eve where people that maybe are on the fence about going out for New Year's Eve, this is the year they want to go out and enjoy themselves. That I cannot imagine. Like New Year's Eve to me is maybe the worst night to put anything of significance on.
I think they should re-air the barbed wire explosion match, but edit in proper explosions. Like CGI.
Yes,
afterwards.
the edited version of the barbed wire, that would actually be hilarious.
Yeah,
it would actually be perfect if Rampage, like, give them a second hour so that
Mhm.
the countdown coincides with
With the
midnight,
countdown. Yeah,
and then it cuts to
I love
black,
it.
and then we get the big fireworks explosion of what would have happened. So that is what I would have done with Rampage on New Year's Eve.
Oh, the countdown special. Wonderful. Our last question here comes from our friend Bruce Lord, who asked, any thoughts on the MLW New Japan Pro Wrestling collaboration falling apart, reportedly due to MLW's work with All Japan Pro Wrestling? Is Noah/AGPW's beef really still a thing in 2021?
Yeah, I'm actually asking around on this, so I don't really want to comment on it because I'm still trying to figure out some details on it.
Well, thank you very much for the support, Bruce, and thank you all of you guys for watching us live, 1 o'clock every single day, weekdays at youtube.com/postwrestling, and of course, if you're a patron, audio podcast directly to your device.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We're back tonight with Ask Away and then live tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Bookmark it, youtube.com/postwrestling.